All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick and Brad Thomas today, joining us to talk about the Masters, handicapping Scottie Scheffler, man who may win the tournament, and Tiger Woods, man who probably will not win the tournament. And then we'll talk about the Champions League as well, get your thoughts on that, Brad. But let's start straight away with the Masters. Any just kind of general lead-in thoughts, Brad, that you think kind of define the tournament this year?
Yeah, this might be one of the more difficult Masters to kind of handicap or even like predict, because this is the first year that we have live strokes gained golf data, right? Like they're actually tracking every single shot. But how accurate is that information? Because they're using two totally different systems. The PGA Tour uses ShotLink. I'm not even sure the name of what Liv is using. And we have a favorite who's going to go off around plus 350. So there's two factors to weigh in. How much of that price is palatable for Scottie Scheffler, and versus how much does that balloon the other prices for the other players in the field? And then how much do you trust the data that's being spit out by both of the organizations against each other?
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't even really given a thought that the data might be a little bit in question. Do you hold up what the data is telling you in terms of just a guy like Jon Rahm is still pretty clearly, top 3 in the world, maybe top 2? Do you have any just general thoughts on the live guys in terms of who you expect to come in form?
Yeah, well, the data is interesting because the numbers are skewed, right? Like and not in like a bad way. They're just feel more inflated. But if you're comparing them to the golfers in the field, right? If you're taking Jon Rahm versus all of the other live golfers, then yeah, he's playing out of his mind. If you take Joaquin Niemann compared to all the other guys, playing out of his mind. I think it's going to be one of those things where you have to just find the true grinders who are striping the ball right now, right? Like Jon Rahm hasn't played as much as he likes to, especially leading up into majors, but he's a guy who's just striping the ball. You look at Brooks Koepka, not playing really good golf, but that's not out of the ordinary, right? Like you think about Brooks Koepka, he's a guy who only cares about 4 tournaments a season, and that's the 4 majors. So you can kind of eliminate his form leading up into majors and just say that this guy's going to be ready to play. There's a guy who I didn't expect to be as high on the odds boards from live, if we're going to talk about a live guy, and that was Dustin Johnson. Because if you look at the live data, he's playing absolutely crazy. He's a previous Masters winner, and I feel like he's not getting a lot of respect. So it's going to be interesting to see how these live guys come through. But if there's any indication of the years prior, these live guys are still really good golfers, and they're going to compete at majors.
Yeah, Brad, I think to your point, the most interesting thing about pricing the Masters and majors just in general now is how we adjust for live guys and how you project how they're going to do going forward. And I think the main thing that factors into that is whether you think with the schedule, whether that leads to more rust and that they're not going to be as well performed in these tournaments, or whether it's more rest and they're on an advantage heading into these tournaments. I think that it's pretty difficult to draw conclusions off of the limited sample that we have last year. Obviously, Brooks Koepka coming second at the Masters and winning the PGA Championship would speak to the idea that rest is helpful. At the same time, Koepka has always stepped up his game in majors. So where do you kind of fall on the rest versus rust argument?
Yeah, Koepka's the unicorn. I would actually like playing as much golf on quality golf courses in really good tournaments leading up to the Masters. There's a reason why when you break into Masters data or you read anyone's article in Masters Week, they're always talking about the past champions form. Like if you look at Jon Rahm, when he won the Masters, he had a win. He had a top 3 in his last 5. Scottie Scheffler had 3 wins and a top 10. The only guy who really kind of didn't have that form coming in to win the Masters was Hideki Matsuyama. Even if you look at Dustin Johnson or Tiger Woods, those guys were playing amazing golf heading into Augusta. We take Brooks out of the picture. I don't know if I'm going to trust a lot of live guys to win outright who haven't been playing well. I will say this, though. Playing Doral on the Blue Monster was probably the best tune-up they can get. I actually think playing the Blue Monster, I've played that course myself, and it's really tough in tournament conditions, is a much bigger test than the guys who are playing in Valero. And that's no disrespect to the PGA Tour or any of their courses. It's just how difficult Blue Monster can play. So I think that will help a lot of those guys. But, I mean, I don't know. When you're shaking bottles of champagne on the 18th green after you win, there's guys who are getting paychecks. And this is no disrespect. I mean it, seriously. but it's hard for me to take it serious when you have a major the very next week to contend in.
Yeah, no, that's all fair. I agree. A last macro question for you, though. There's some new names at the top of the board, and there is a long history of debutantes performing pretty poorly. And in fact, it's kind of talked about as sort of one of the quintessential examples where course history matters. You learn the secrets of Augusta once and you have them for the rest of your life. That said, you have a couple of players who are coming off of some really impressive performances on the PGA Tour side of things in this so far in this calendar season. And at the top of that list is Ludwig Aberg, currently sixth choice and under 30-1, which is amazing. Wyndham Clark, of course, has been hitting the absolute cover off the ball. He is playing very well. He is coming off of course, the U.S. Open win last summer. And I think ultimately, these two lead a cast of challengers who are first timers. What is your general expectation among these guys? Are these guys all fades, or anyone stand out that you think can really kind of challenge the curse of the debutante here at Augusta?
Yeah, you're going to want to find the debutantes whose game kind of travels, right? The guys who don't have a lot of holes. And it would have to be Ludwig Aberg out of all of the guys. The reason I say Ludwig, so there's a pretty cool stat that I like to look up, and it's how often a golfer is gaining at least 2 strokes to the field in an event. There's only 2 guys who are up there in the 85% range, Scottie Scheffler and Ludwig Aberg. And then when you extend it out to gaining 4+ strokes per event to the field, 2 guys who are even in the 50% range, that's Aberg and Scottie Scheffler. I don't care if you've never played Augusta before. I don't care if you're a debutante. When your name is in the same conversation in strokes gained data with Scottie Scheffler, I think you're going to do well. My only problem with Aberg is I don't think he's going to win these tournaments that the course is built well for him, right? Because we keep thinking all these events that we've had so far, he's going to play these courses. They're designed for great ball strikers, guys who are just going to gain a ton on approach. And he's actually winning like these birdie fests, right? Like he won a birdie fest. He contends at birdie fest. I don't know why. Maybe just because he's just gaining so many strokes, it's going to add up eventually. But I would say he's probably the most likely debutant to win. But a guy who's Mr. All Reliable is Wyndham Clark. He has a little back issues right now, but his game is just serious. He can do it all. And I like his short game a little bit better than Aberg. So if you want to talk about a guy who's better in the placement market, I would go Clark over Aberg. But to win, I would go Aberg over Clark.
Okay, let's talk about Tiger Woods, as we must, given that it is Tiger at the Masters now. Tiger is 150-1 to win the whole thing. I don't think that is going to happen, but what do you think are the best ways to bet on or against Tiger? Brad, he's plus 120 to make the cut, minus 165 to miss. Is there anything that you like around Tiger?
Yeah, so the best way to bet Tiger Woods is find a book who's going to boost how many birdies he's going to make in a round. If we remember, before he withdrew from Genesis, he wasn't playing poorly, right? Like he was making a ton of birdies, but he did have that rust, right? Where he would just make a lot of really dumb bogeys. I don't know if I could trust Tiger Woods in the placement market either, because he's withdrawn from 3 of his last 5 events, 1 being illness, 1 being back issue. Even he withdrew from the Masters when he had plantar fasciitis. I do think Tiger Woods to make the cut is a really good bet, though, especially at plus money. For those who don't know, Tiger Woods is on the cusp of setting the Masters cut record. If he makes the cut this year, that'll be 24 consecutive years of making the cut, done by no one else. Another little nugget to add, this will be the first time that Lance Bennett will be on the bag for him at the Masters. So you're going to have this new rejuvenated Tiger Woods. I want to know if it was, they gave out like 5 guys or something at the last tournament at Genesis, made a lot of players sick. I want to know if that was the issue or he's just covering it up with something else, because it kind of seemed like it was out of nowhere where he got sick. And that would kind of determine how comfortable I am in betting Tiger. But just the mental aspect of playing at Augusta, he knows his course better than anyone else. You have to imagine that he's going to get a few extra strokes just from his knowledge of the course, what holes he can beat, what holes he has to know he has to take his medicine. That mental edge is going to be enough, I think, to help him make the cut.
Okay, interesting. I honestly didn't have a good sense whether he was going to be able to finish around, let alone make the cut. But there's a decent chance that there's probably some mispriced in that, some disconnect in the pricing of that market, just with the way that they have to open, some numbers to let people bet him to win, even though it seems pretty much impossible. I do want to ask you about the guy at the top of the board, though. It's very, very tough to remember the last time we had a favorite of this magnitude at the top of the board at the Masters. Probably like late aughts Tiger Woods, unless I'm forgetting somebody obvious. And I'm, of course, talking about Scottie Scheffler, who's currently in like the 4-1 range here to win. We're talking, at least 2 times the likelihood of the next best guy in a very small, very, very good field, which is amazing. Is your general take on Scottie is just, this is fair. This is the world we live in right now. He is just playing this outrageously well, and he's of course coming off of having won this event 2 years ago. Is this the first? He's gonna be the first multiple time winner since Bubba Watson back in the day.
Okay, so I don't want to just like gush at Scottie Scheffler because these odds are horrible, right? I bet Scottie Scheffler at plus 750. I bet it about a month and a half ago. And then when he lost to Steven Jaeger at the Houston Open, I don't know what the books were thinking. They dropped him back to 750 again. And I took another nibble. It was up for less than 2 days before they dropped it back to plus 400. I think Scottie Scheffler is going to win this event, but history tells us he's not, right? I did some digging into these massive favorites. I did the same thing in Houston Open, and I faded Scottie at the Houston Open because he was the only golfer outside of Jon Rahm and Dustin Johnson to go off at those prices at the Houston Open, and Dustin Johnson didn't even play that event. Jon Rahm didn't win the Mexico Open. Scottie Scheffler didn't win the Houston Open. Now we're at the Masters. We have to go back to 1985. There have been 15 golfers with prices of plus 450 or shorter. Only in one instance has the golfer actually won the event, and that's Tiger Woods. He did in 2005 at plus 350. But I do think the landscape of golf is a little bit different. I think with so much going on, so much money being pumped into the sport, it's the division of the different leagues. It's a mental aspect for a lot of guys where I can just already eliminate them out of contention. And then we have Scottie Scheffler, who's absolutely blitzing the ball right now. And why I say that, if you look at almost any strokes gained metric, Scottie Scheffler is going to be at the very top. First in strokes gained, tee to green, first in scoring average, first in strokes gained approach. It's just the way he's playing golf is nuts. His biggest problem, the reason he wasn't winning 3 out of 5 events, was because he was terrible at putting. Well, he switched to the mallet putter, and now he's gained strokes in 3 straight events on the putting surface. He has 2 wins and a runner-up. And oh yeah, I did kind of bash him and his odds at the Houston Open, but we probably saw like C- or C+ Scottie Scheffler at that tournament, and he was 1 putt away, a 5-foot putt away from making it into the playoffs in that tournament, where I thought he played probably the worst I'd seen him all year, which was absolutely crazy. It's scary. So yeah, I bet him. And you'll see I bet another guy. I only bet 2 guys this week, and it's not a lot of confidence in history, but a lot of confidence Scottie Scheffler. One thing I want to add too, there's a guy who made a statement. I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago or it was this week, but they said, when you bet on Scottie Scheffler at 5-1, 6-1, it's different than betting on a Jon Rahm at 6-1. And that's because you look at the odds board, you have to pick one guy on that entire board that for sure will be in contention come Sunday. And I feel like Scottie Scheffler is going to be the only golfer that you could say that about who lives at these prices. Jon Rahm, we couldn't say that when he played the Mexico Open because he was missing cuts. Like, yeah, he had like 3 wins in 8 events, but he also had like 1 or 2 missed cuts. Scottie Scheffler doesn't miss cuts, and he consistently finishes inside the top 10.
I don't know what the stat is, but it's like something like 29 of the past 32 events, Scheffler has finished in the top 12, which is insane. And if you look at his strokes gained stuff, like you take out the putting, which has been, to your point, Brad, it's been better, but it's still been inconsistent over the past, say, year.
Yep.
You take the putting out, Scheffler's pretty close to peak Tiger Woods. And when you talk about a really short favorite in a major, which Scheffler is clearly at plus 400, One of my favorite just kind of gambling tidbits in history is that the 2007 Masters, Tiger Woods went off minus 125 to win the Masters, which is completely insane. And he didn't win. He came tied second, so poor effort from Tiger there. Zach Johnson took it home in 07. Who can possibly forget that? But yeah, Scheffler is certainly in his own tier. Brad, you mentioned there was someone else that you like in the outright. Who's that?
It's Tony Finau. And I've heard a lot of grunts and groans on my X page about betting Tony Finau because I don't think people are taking enough time to dig into the stat profile of Tony Finau. They just watch the coverage and they see him miss putt after miss putt, or they see him in the trees and in the woods. It's okay that Tony Finau has lost strokes on the Florida Swing. We look at the 4 courses. I think he played in 3 events on the Florida Swing. Those are really tough courses off the tee. Augusta, that's not tough off the tee, and the rough is really short. So Augusta's going to benefit those guys who are long off the tee. And if we want to talk about Tony Finau and how he performed off the tee, he switched shafts in his driver and gained like 5 strokes off the tee in his last event, where he did finish runner-up. Then we want to talk about the putter and how bad his putter's been. Well, he's gained a lot of strokes in 3 of his last 4 events on the putter surface. So if he puts it all together, I think he can be in contention. When you're talking about a guy who's 40-1 to win, you don't necessarily need them to win. At least I would say a seasoned gambler or someone who's just only about collecting profit. You just need the guy to be in contention, because if you have a 2-man race going down to 16 or 17, the last 3 holes of the tournament, you're going to have so many hedge opportunities where at 40-1, there's no way, if it's a 1-stroke lead or they're tied, there's no way that, let's say Scottie Scheffler, for example, there's no way he's going to be anything worse than minus 150. So you're still going to get pretty good value to take at least 20 units away.
Okay, very good. He did have one of the most outstanding rounds of the entire year so far. His round 2 at that Houston Open was phenomenal. 9 strokes gained in 1 round is very, very, very tough to do. Had to be one of the best we've seen from any player all year. So the fact that the ceiling is there and he's shown it to us recently, that's enough for me to believe that a guy that has always kind of exactly fit the mold of a future Masters champion is worth a shot at these kind of prices. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on another guy that people are kind of expecting to finally break through, and it is, of course, the X-Man, Xander Schauffele. He's pretty clearly the second best player on the PGA Tour right now. I don't think that's a controversial statement.
Very true.
Now there's a big delta between number 1 and number 2. But what's your general approach for a player like Schauffele, who's playing some of the best golf of his career and has always kind of had a decent eye for this particular tournament?
Yeah, with Xander, it's interesting because you hear the story, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's what Xander feels like. He's not winning consistently enough for how good of a golfer he is, but you always have to bet him, right? Like, you bet him to win a tournament, and he's going to finish T5, T3, and it's going to be one of those backdoor top 5s because he's not going to be in contention on Sunday, but he's going to put together like a 65 round, and it's going to push him into that top 3. I'm betting him top 10. I have debated doing this, and I haven't decided yet, was going to bet Xander to win at least 1 major this year. I think the price is sitting around 12 or 13-1 because I think his game is good enough, and I think he's getting those good, consistent reps where he could. I'm just going to bet him top 10 this week. I might bet him to finish top 10 in 2+ majors so far this year. I think that's plus 500 as well. He's second in strokes gained total. His history here is fantastic, except for that 2022 year, which was that weird year anyway, but he has a top 10. He finished top 20 in all 4 out of the 5 with 3 top 10s, a T2 in 2019. And what you need at Augusta, right? Great off the tee. You need to be good with your wedges, creativity. And he's one of the most creative wedge players around the greens. Solid putter. He has all of that, and he has the experience. I think that, the price dropped a little bit. I bet it at plus 185. I'd probably play it to plus 140. Would probably be as low as I go. If you are really, really wanting to bet Xander Schauffele at a better price and it's not available to you, you can bet Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele to both finish inside the top 10 at a pretty palatable price. I don't really do those exacta plays a lot, but I think Scottie Scheffler, he's the only guy who went off at minus money to finish inside the top 10. I think that's a pretty good bet.
Okay, last one for you, Brad. Joaquin Niemann, the pride of Santiago, Chile. He is Basically a coin flip to finish in the top 20, obviously on the Live Tour now. He randomly hasn't ever finished top 15 at a major, which is surprising for someone of his talent. Do you think that this is the tournament where he might break through?
I do. I put a bet on Jocko, like a free bet at 90 or something, and I never tweeted it out or posted it. And the world doesn't even know. So I'm not even going to celebrate it or count it because I didn't think his price would go nuts. And I didn't think his form would turn into this. He has what, 3 wins since November, 5 top 5 finishes. And what I want to say, it's kind of going to go off of what Nick Faldo said and a little bit of a rebuttal, right? He kind of bashed these live golfers heading into the Masters saying, we can't count what these guys are doing because they're out there playing resort courses. Listen, Joaquin Niemann shot a 59 at Mayakoba. Yeah. That is a former PGA Tour course. He shot a 59. Yes, broke 60. So I don't care what you're going to say. These guys are playing. Some of these courses are pretty good courses, and I will take his wins over a lot of guys who are winning events like John Deere. And again, no disrespect to that event, but when you're winning a full field DP World Tour event, we have to just be like, relax, everyone, because these events are solid enough, and he has the wins. But his top 20 price is really good. He finished T16. I think last year, and I think the 2 years that before that, it wasn't the same Joaquin Niemann. Right? He was playing on the South American tour 4 years ago. He was kind of getting his footing, trying to figure things out. Now he's a true ball striker, a great ball striker, and he's a big gainer. And that's what you need. Like, when you have guys who come and play these events, you just need them to gain strokes in as many areas as possible, and all the rest will work itself out.
Okay, Joaquin Niemann, minus 125 to finish in the top 20. All right, let's pivot to the Champions League. But first, this Saturday, the Premier League continues on NBC when Bruno Fernandes and Manchester United look to keep pace in the top half of the table when they face Bournemouth. The match starts at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Man United, rabble of a club that they are not participating in the Champions League. They are not in the final 8. The teams that are, as we've talked about, really wonky draw where you've got ostensibly the 4 best teams are all on one side, and then the other 4 on the other side. You've got Arsenal, Bayern, Real Madrid, and Man City on one side of the draw, and then PSG, who are playing Barcelona, Atletico playing Dortmund. And you could even argue that the 2 best teams are Madrid and Man City, and they play each other, while Arsenal are in what is very confusing for an Arsenal fan, given that the past 3 times Arsenal have played Bayern Munich, they've literally lost 5-1. Arsenal are favoured in that tie against Bayern. Of these 4 matchups, Brad, or just the outrights in general, what's most interesting to you about the Champions League?
Most interesting to me is you're going to have so much fun betting these because the 2 best teams, like you said, are playing against each other, Manchester City and Real Madrid. So that eliminates one of them, which means you're going to get value on, I think, anybody after Real Madrid, whether that be PSG, Bayern, Barcelona, Atletico, or Dortmund. There was a price hanging around a couple days ago, Arsenal to qualify against Bayern Munich. I really liked that. I would actually rather play Arsenal to win over the price now. It was minus 115. It's minus 165 for them to qualify now. But this is not a good Bayern team. They're dealing with a lot of health injuries. And Jay, you know this best. This is the best Arsenal have played in a long time. The calendar year 2024, only 2 losses, and one was away to Porto, where you guys pretty much didn't play soccer, and the second one was in the FA Cup to Liverpool. 6 wins at home across all competitions in 2024. We know Thomas Tuchel, the Bayern manager, is the ultimate pragmatist when he plays on the road in leg 1 of any type of cup tie. He's just going to make sure it's no more than a 1-0 defeat. And if you guys win 1-0, we win a money line bet. So I think that's a little bit better price than playing the minus 165 to qualify.
Ooh, okay. Very fun. So I guess the other side of the draw has me intrigued. We
Yes.
talked about it when the draw came out, and it didn't really entirely make sense that they hadn't kind of aggressively shortened PSG, in my opinion, who I had pulled up as the best of the four on the bottom there. Is there anything about PSG that I need to take a little bit of caution here, or do you think they come through against Barcelona pretty convincingly?
I think that anytime you talk about PSG, you're going to have a little caution defensively. Sometimes it's scary, but they play well at home. I think that if you have a PSG ticket, you bet them to win at home, because I'm afraid that no lead's going to be safe when you have a team that is Barcelona. And this is not me praising Barcelona by any means. This is a bad Barcelona team, right? Lewandowski can barely get service and barely score goals. Their midfield made up of a bunch of kids. And no disrespect, Yamal's a fantastic 16-year-old, but I'm talking about the midfield, not the winger. So I would play the minus 105 if you want to kind of like hedge your bet. But we said this offline. I bet PSG, the numbers when the draw came out did not move. I bet PSG at 18-1 the day the draw came out. I was like, no way. To see it drop, I saw it drop, I think, a week later to 10-1, and now ultimately down to 7-1. People are really starting to realize that you're on the right side of the bracket. You're on the right side of the draw. You're playing against a team who I think they should beat. They should score more goals than, which is number one. And all they need to do, I think if they take a 2-goal lead to Spain, they're going to win it.
Yeah, it is a disgrace that one of these four teams on that half of the draw is going to make the final, because none of these teams are any good. For better or worse, I've been consuming a lot of Ligue 1 the past couple of months, sweating out some futures bets there, and PSG are no good, and Barcelona are even worse. They have not given La Liga a shake at all. And then Atletico have been a disaster all season. Somehow, I don't think they deserve to get through against Inter, but they did. And then Dortmund is an absolute rebel, and they're plus 150 to go through against the worst Atletico team in recent memory. So absolute mess. And then on the other side, I think Madrid and City are probably your two best teams. So Arsenal, I think, might have a say in that as well. But this is the worst Bayern team in like 12 years or something.
Yes.
Like, they are all over the place. By Leverkusen are like minus 50,000 to win the Bundesliga. It's just insane, given that Bayern have won nine straight, I think.
Yep.
So it is. I mean, the top half of the draw is going to be awesome. I don't want to see Arsenal-Man City in the semi-final, just for the pure aesthetic, because the match that they played out in the Premier League is proper 0 out of 10.
Horrible.
Absolutely nothing happened. So don't want to see that. Though in a way, I do want to see that, because I am an Arsenal fan. It will mean they will have progressed. And with how ingrained I am now in betting, Brad, I don't really have any rooting interest anymore outside of Arsenal and the Collingwood Magpies in the AFL. So we'll get a little on edge if Arsenal do make it back to the Champions League final, given I can still remember 2006 Arsenal-Barcelona, getting up at 6 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time and watching Samuel Eto'o and Giuliano Belletti turn the knife with those 2 goals in the last 15 minutes to sink Arsenal. But yeah, I think it is set up in a fun way. Do you think there is anyone in the outright market that represents value? Because Man City are kind of anchoring the market at plus 175.
It's going to be Atletico Madrid, and it's just because they're on the right side of the draw. I remember I asked you guys what's their price to reach the final. I think even at plus 280 to reach the final is pretty fine. They still have a really outstanding home record, and I mean, look at the teams that are left on that side. They have the biggest managerial edge out of any of those teams on the side in Simeone. And so I think Atletico Madrid is pretty fine. I want to say one more thing about Arsenal and Bayern Munich. I forgot to mention this. I was really shocked. Tuchel ran out a very, very strong 11 in their weekend match. So that just really makes me think that he's going to just try to, as much as he can, just sit deep and just hope they don't destroy them. So just give you a little bit more confidence that you guys might make it to the next round.
Okay. I got one more follow-up for you here.
Yep.
Top goal scorer market. I'm sweating the Holland bet here. I'm sweating a Holland bet here. And Mbappe, who seems to live to make my particular life a discomfort. He's gonna be in the final. I just feel like PSG is gonna get there, and he's got these two soft matchups to compile goals. He's coming at plus 250. I feel like, and I in part betting on PSG to make the final aggressively to hope to hit a middle here where Haaland and Man City end up there as well, and maybe that gets home as top goal scorer, even though PSG is also in the final. Do you think that man who is Kylian Mbappe ruins my 2024 the way he has done many other in recent memory?
I actually think it's more than just Mbappe that you have to worry about. I don't know if you guys have noticed, Erling Haaland was out not too long ago, and since then he hasn't played great. I think he's only scored 2 goals since he's come back from injury or rest, whatever they want to call it, and he's not really coming to the ball a lot. Right? It's only trying to beat someone on his left foot with pace. When, that's just speculation by me. So I could be way wrong. He could be 100% fit. But we also have to remember that if you're afraid of Mbappe, I think you should be, because let's say they win the leg one against Barcelona, and then now they're playing in Spain. Barca's horrible in transition, which means Mbappe is going to have so many counterattack opportunities to just pile on goals, just like he did in his last Champions League fixture. I think he scored 1 or 2 goals. He scored in the first half for sure on the counter. So I don't know what's going on with Erling Haaland, but if there's anybody who can go absolutely berserk, it's Haaland. But I would be really afraid of Mbappe.
Yeah, I'd say the thing that is really key with these markets and why sometimes they can look a little bit off if you're just eyeballing them, like it's such an element of them. It's just like who takes penalties for the team, sure. Because sometimes you don't absorb that necessarily. Now both Haaland and Mbappe, they do take penalties for their respective teams, which and I think Haaland has forfeited penalty duties a couple of times, and then Pep has kind of given him a serve in the media, being like, no, you are the best taker, you must take them. So that is key, and just a little tidbit for those type of markets going forward. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Brad. Enjoyed your breakdown of the Masters and the Champions League. Can you tell people where to follow you and what you're working on this week?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Brad Thomas. This week, we're going to be breaking down the Masters. I'm going to put out some Tiger Woods bets, obviously. I'm going to have my outright talk about why I like Scottie Scheffler, and I'm going to play a lot of matchups. I feel like this is the time of year, the one tournament where you can go a little overexposed and just have fun. Just make sure you stick to units.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you very much, Brad, and good luck with the baby girl, mate.
Thank you.
It's a lot of fun. All right. We are done. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, thanks again to Brad Thomas. We'll see you tomorrow.